Welcome. This is the first episode of Kings of the North. You got me here, Zach, and with me for what I think is going to be my main co-host guy is Josh. And we're going to be talking a lot of Viking stuff, primarily Vikings information. We're going to go into NFL as total, but that's going to be our main focus. As of today, we're going to talk about free agency. Free agency was this last week, started, what day did that start? The 7th? Something like that. I want to say we
started last week. Yep.
Yeah, something happened. It was crazy. I was basically on Twitter for like 2 days straight, just refreshing, following all these different guys, NFL guys like Rappaport and all those dudes as they updated every 2 minutes on where people were going. The Vikings actually made more of a splash this year than I thought they were going to. But right away, we're going to get into what we feel like are the winners and losers of free agency. So, Josh, why don't you start out with your winner of free agency?
Yeah, so my first team that I believe made the biggest splash right now and has the opportunity to make a bigger splash in free agency is the Oakland Raiders. Oakland has been known over the years to be a perennial place for top-end guys to come and kind of their careers to die off over the last couple years.
Yeah, and Jones, Drew, and on and on and on.
Guys
several
at the
wide receivers.
bottom end of their careers. Yep. So it's really nice to see who they're picking up right now that are going to be playmakers. They signed 3 agents right now. The first one, outside linebacker Bruce Irvin from the Seattle Seahawks. They signed him. He's coming into his 4th season, I believe, or his 5th season, and pairing him with Khalil Mack is going to be a great pass rush for them, especially after they lost Justin Tuck to retirement. Their second one is Kalichi Osemele, I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm sorry, I'm not really sure about that.
Nobody's really sure.
A huge road grader out of Baltimore. He comes in as a guard. He's going to shore up their offensive line. Awesome. And then lastly, Sean Smith out of Kansas City. He's going to be that big 6'2 corner who's going to be a good press guy. And with the pass rush that they're getting, it's going to be really great for him to be able to use his long arms and his big body to get interceptions off of quick passes because Mack and Irvin are going to be in the quarterback's face really fast. Zach, who do you have for your winner free agency?
I got Jacksonville, and because I think they did a lot to shore up the defensive side of the ball, which was their weakness.
Oh, they really
definitely did. They're going to have one of the most explosive offenses in the next 5 to 6 years if they're able to keep the guys around that they have. They shored up a little bit of that with a better runner, or at least not a better runner, but he's going to be complimentary. And Chris Ivory, they're going to split. I can't remember what their current back is.
They're talking 50-50, but he came out of the Jets, out of New York, and he had 1,000 yards last year.
Really good year last year. Really good guy.
TJ Yeldon was the guy you were thinking of.
Yep. So they're going to be complimentary. I don't know much about Yeldon's running style, but I know Ivory is more of a up and down running back, basically. Get to the hole, a little more power there.
Out of Alabama. Yeah,
not a lot of shift.
A hard-nosed kind of team.
Yeah. So, and then they did a lot on defense. They got Prince Amakamura at cornerback. So, and then they also got Tayshaun Gibson at safety, and then Malik Jackson, which is probably their biggest pickup on defense. Yeah. They really needed to get that pass rush, and I think he's going to help there a lot.
That's definitely ones that they've been trying to address over free agency, and they missed out on a couple with Olivier Vernon. They missed out on him. They missed out on Bruce Smith, who they were going after, but he is definitely going to be a help at that defensive tackle spot.
Yeah. Get some more push. They definitely, once we see that, if these guys can mesh well, they did a similar thing to what my loser actually did. They went out and they hit it hard, but I think they did it smarter than my loser team. So
they had $90 million in cap space this offseason, so they had the money to throw around, and they knew this was going to be the year for Gus Bradley. If they didn't make a splash, if they didn't do something, he was going to be out of a job next year.
Yeah, so I think good moves. I think they're going to be a good up and coming team in an AFC. That's AFC South, isn't it?
Yes.
Of an AFC South division that's been floundering the last few years. So
yep, they should be able to take that division pretty quick with, I would say, just with the free agents they have, they should make a run for it. Not to mention the dynamic wide receivers and the quarterback who threw for 4,000 yards last year.
Oh, yeah. the tandem Allens are going to be good for a long time with Bortles there. So
well, if we get into that, we got some pretty good teams, coming up. Different divisions that are now changing the direction. You get some really hard-nosed guys, and all of a sudden you flip. And I think the Raiders and Jacksonville are going to be the teams to watch this year with the free agents that they got. So far, I mean, the losers of free agency, we have a handful. Zach, who do you have for your losers?
My loser is going to be the Giants, and I feel like I'm doing this a little tongue-in-cheek because I just praised Jacksonville for going out and being heavy in free agency. The thing I feel like the Giants did wrong is I don't know what their cap position looked like. I know they weren't in the top 10, I don't think, for availability cap, and then they went out and spent ungodly amounts of money.
Yep.
And anytime that happens, we've seen it in the past when the Eagles did it a few years back, and they just went out and they got everybody, basically. They picked up pretty much everyone at the best position.
That dream team
and then they flopped. This really isn't that, but I think they spent way too much money.
I agree.
They put we have Olivier Vernon and Jason Pierre-Paul. You brought in Vernon at the defensive end, and you brought back Paul. But I was looking at the stats. They have like something like $80 million into these guys.
Yep.
And they've had in like the 10 seasons between them or something like that, they've had 3 seasons total of double-digit sacks.
Yep.
That is not enough sacks from DN position.
No, Olivier only had about 7.5 last year with the Dolphins. Their pass rush wasn't great, even though they added Ndamukong Suh. You thought that would help a little bit.
Yeah.
But he just didn't produce as much, so I think they are overpaying him for what he could potentially do, but not what he has done in the past.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's what you have to do in the NFL, though. This is a problem, and I don't know if we're going to bring up the Texans at all, but Brock Osweiler's a perfect situation for that. Is you paid
$82 million.
Yeah, you paid him for potential, not based on what he's done, because he's done next to nothing. So they brought in Janoris Jenkins. He's a solid cornerback.
I like him out of the Rams.
That's a good pickup, and they bring in Damon Harrison, nose tackle. It's obvious what they want to do here. Their biggest struggle was on defense last year. You can see it. What they have like 7 games where they lost on like the final drive or something like that.
Yep.
So they obviously want to shore up that defense. If they're even, if these guys can win 2 more games from them, they probably lock up that division.
I think you're pretty close with that. The Giants, I mean, Eli is still at a steady pace. He only has Odell Beckham on the one side. He got Ruben Randall on the other side, and then Victor Cruz hasn't been healthy for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
He took a pay cut to stay with them. But I think they didn't do enough on offense to help themselves, and they're throwing money at the defense to try to keep them in games, because when they won the 2 Super Bowls against the Patriots, their defense is what held them in it. Pierre-Paul, Michael Strahan, Justin Tuck did damage to Tom Brady, and I think they're trying to replicate that. The biggest problem they're going to have is Janoris Jenkins. They signed him, which is awesome, but they let Prince Amakamura get away to Jacksonville. So they still only have that one corner, and Janoris was actually seen as a number 2 corner behind Trumaine Johnson out of the Rams, who the Rams tagged and didn't let him get away. So you can see what they put their thought into, that Trumaine was going to be better than Janoris, and they kept him instead. Yeah,
so I mean, it could turn out okay for them, but I think that is so much money. That's so much money to put into a player. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It could be one of those things where it actually turns out really well, but I feel like anytime you put in a lot of money into a handful of guys, that's really feast or famine.
It's really all about the scheme. If you have a good scheme, well, I mean, we saw it with Nnamdi Asomugha a couple years ago when we went from the Raiders to the Eagles. He is one of the worst free agent signings of all time because they paid him 5 years, $60 million, and he was putting to a scheme that didn't help him at all.
Yeah.
And so he looked terrible, and they cut him after 1 year. If Jenkins and Damon Harrison and Olivier Vernon don't get into that right scheme for what their skill positions help them with, I think they're going to flop, and it's not going to go well. So I'm going to move on to my pick for the losers of free agency, and I think you would all agree with this. It's going to be the Cleveland Browns.
The Browns are losers at everything.
They are not helping
steps around
themselves at all. They have a new football president of operations, whoever he is, Sashi Brown, and he is not doing well for himself to start. He lets a ton of guys go in free agency. Travis Benjamin, their best wide receiver, left. I don't know if they're planning on getting Josh Gordon back from his 1-year suspension, but Travis had 1,000 yards receiving last year, I think, and 60, 70 receptions.
Went to San Diego, and he's going to help them out a lot.
He's definitely going to help Philip Rivers over there. Center Alex Mack opted out of his final year of his contract, which shows you, that he doesn't have any faith in the team, or in the leadership. Hugh Jackson is a good coach, but he's losing all his key players. Mitchell Schwartz, their right tackle, I believe he went to the Bucks, I want to say. Where did he head?
Colts.
To the Colts.
No, not Colts. Sorry, Kansas City. I believe
Kansas
now.
City Chiefs. Perfect. I think the Chiefs are going to be very good with him shoring up that right side. And then Tayshaun Gibson, their Pro Bowl safety 2 years ago, they let get away. So they're losing. He went to Jacksonville. They're just losing too many guys, and it's becoming a problem. And then they cut Johnny Manziel. They waived him, which is a good thing for them. But I think we were all surprised they didn't do it sooner. Once Hugh Jackson came in, I thought they'd just get rid of him. But it just seems like they cannot keep their good players.
Well, just to give you guys an idea, if you're not as privy to the NFL as me and Josh are, the NFL.com put out a list of their top 100 ranked players. The four guys that the departures from the Cleveland Browns, all four of them were in the top 100. Actually, all four of them were in the top 50 of the best free agents in the NFL. Alex Mack is possibly one of the best centers in the NFL.
I'd say top 3 centers.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can see there, and they've brought in a couple of no-name guys and brought back a couple of guys.
And I think they're trying to put all their chips in a basket to get Colin Kaepernick, but Kaepernick, his style fits actually really well with Chip Kelly's offensive scheme. And coming into the Browns, they think he's going to be like the savior or something, and they keep aiming for him.
Well, based on what he's done with the 49ers, though, do you see that? I don't see that.
No, he's a run and gun type of quarterback, and I think he needs weapons around him to make him look good, and he needs the defense. And he had the defense when he went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago as Jim Harbaugh's coach, but he couldn't handle it as the quarterback. So I think without the weapons and without the defense, and they're letting everybody go, we're going to have an issue there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I completely agree with the Browns. You got to do something. You can't just completely go into the draft thinking you're going to replace all these guys. It's just not going to happen. You're going to place one or two of them, and then you're gonna be weaker at that spot. You're not gonna hit on 5 quality starters.
No, not with the compensatory picks that they got for the league this year. There's no way.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. Well, moving on, we talked about the NFL and what we think's good and bad with what's going on with other teams. Let's get to the main topic. Let's go to the Vikings. Basically, if you're really into Vikings news like we are, you're probably fairly familiar with what happened. We re-signed a few guys, Sendejo, Mike Harris, Audie Cole, Ellis Kendrick. The last two are, primarily going to be special teams and rotational guys. But
I like Marcus Sherrills. We signed him to a 2-year contract, which is awesome for us. He's a great punt returner, but he's a dime corner at best. Yeah. We have decent corners right now, and I don't think he can break the top 3.
No, I completely agreed. We brought him back strictly because he's been one of the better punt returners in the NFL the last 4 or 5 years, however long he's been around. Basically, Greenway is going to be the one we're going to be looking for. I think they definitely bring him back. I think if they bring him back, this is last year. He walks away after this year. I think it would, in my opinion, it would be a shame on the Vikings organization if they didn't bring him back 1 year, just to, as a farewell tour type of situation.
Both sides want him to come back for a final year. He's definitely a presence in the locker room. His on the field, not effort, but just overall skill set, he's starting to slow down, and you can see it. Yeah. But he's only in the 4-3 package when we run our base defense, and then with Kendricks and Barr being the athletic freaks that they are, they run the nickel and dime on our defense, and so Chad's only in on 30% of the defense or something.
Chad's basically a defensive coach coming into this year, pretty much. Just he's always been a smart player. Even when he was younger, he was always a good football IQ guy. He always knew where he needed to be and things like that. And he's a good influence on these two young linebackers. And wouldn't surprise me if we bring in somebody else this year through the draft in a mid-round or something like that. But in regards to Michael Harris and Sendejo, I think Sendejo and Harris are going to be fighting for starting positions. I don't think either of them are gimmies by any means, but I think they both will be fighting for starting spots. I think the most interesting thing we did is we brought in Alex Boone from the 49ers.
I love that.
6-year guy. He's been to 2 Pro Bowls. See, I don't know how to judge Pro Bowls. In my mind, that seems like a good thing, but Teddy went to a Pro Bowl this year.
Know.
So it's really hard to tell how many people dropped out that he could get into a Pro Bowl.
We had a lot. I think it was like 39 or more guys drop out of the Pro Bowl this year who didn't want to go. So we have a lot of younger guys headed to the Pro Bowl. You know, Derek Carr and Teddy Bridgewater. They're like, is this what the Pro Bowl is going to be? And we can touch on that more on a different date. But I believe Alex Boone is going to be just a monster when he gets to us.
He's a huge
human being. They call him the Rhino, and for good reason. He's 6'8", 300 pounds, and he plays guard.
That is a large guard.
Yes, that is a monster. I mean, Phil Lodeholt on the right side is, 6'9".
They're going to be about
pounds.
the same in regards to stats. And even when Lodeholt came in, everybody thought he was just a monster. But, yeah, Boone is going to push him for size. And, yeah, he's just going to be a road grader.
He's prepping to be the left guard. You know, he's probably got his starting position already. And putting him next to Matt Khalil on our offensive line on that left side is really going to help us a lot. Because Khalil has struggled over the time, and hopefully having a veteran like Alex Boone come in will definitely help Khalil shore up that left side so we don't have as many sacks go down.
Yeah, and I think it gives us a lot of flexibility. A lot of these transactions have bringing back Michael Harris and then bringing him in, and we're looking at potentially that tackle from Cincinnati as well coming in.
Andre Smith, we have a Cincinnati Bengals right tackle, Andre Smith. You played for Mike Zimmer over there. I mean, he was on the offense and Zimmer was on the defense, but Zimmer has a lot of respect for him. He loves his Bengals players from the last couple years, and he targets a lot of them in free agency. Thus, we saw with Terrence Newman last year.
And Michael Griffin this year, which we'll get into a second. But in regards... Oh, my bad. Michael Griffin was from the Titans. Thank you for bringing that up. Emmanuel Lemur from the Titans, an outside linebacker. I'm looking at multiple different things right now. Don't worry about it.
Never mind. And Michael Griffin from the Tennessee Titans is, I believe, what you were trying to get at. He's in his 9th season.
Yeah.
He just got cut from the Tennessee Titans. He led their team in tackles as a safety, as most in franchise history, with 900 tackles in 9 seasons as a safety, which is really a lot to hold on to as a safety. He's definitely a downhill guy, but he's aging. You know, he's going to be 32 this year, and he does damage as a defender, but his body, who knows how long it's going to last for. And with bringing him in and Andrew Sendejo are definitely going to be competing for the same spot. I know they signed Sendejo for a 4-year contract, but it doesn't mean they're giving him that job. He also is a great special teams guy, and we want to keep him for that.
Yeah, so and then we bring in Lemur as basically he's going to be a rotational guy primarily on special teams as well, but you might see him rotate in and out depending on the package and different things like that. The biggest thing that I wanted to get to is the flexibility that this gives us, especially on the offensive line. Boone has experience at tackle. He has said over and over again from what I've heard that he wants to play left guard, but he has the potential of playing tackle as well, which that gives us Mike Harris and Fusco and Berger.
Yep, I like Berger and TJ Clemmings actually
and too. TJ Clemmings, and then Alex Boone. All of these guys can play multiple positions.
Yep, it's really going to depend on how Phil Lodeholt does and if we get Andre Smith or not. If Lodeholt's not ready to come back from his injury, then I believe TJ Clemmings slides over to right tackle, and then Brandon Fusco, because he's getting replaced with Boone, we think, at left guard, then Fusco can move back to his right side and shore up that line a little bit.
Yeah. So let's say we get Lodeholt back, and then we have Boone and Khalil on the left side. Do you think TJ Clemmings is realistically going to be fighting for that guard position on the right then?
I don't think that they have a set person on that right side. Fusco played left guard last year. He was okay. Mike Harris played right guard, and he only signed him to a 1-year deal. I believe if they thought he was going to be the answer at right guard, they would have signed him longer. It's going to really help with John Sullivan coming back from his couple surgeries that he had, coming back to be that captain on the offensive line to, make sure we get everything set correctly. That being said, though, Berger did a great job
Berger did
in his
really
spot.
well.
Berger is actually the kind of guy who can play the center or both guard positions, so he's like the primary backup for all three positions if he doesn't win that right guard spot. But as Mike Zimmer said, nobody has a starting spot right now. Everybody's earning it, and I think that's a great thing. Playing college football previously, never having a coach tell you, yeah, you're the starter, to let everybody know it's like, hey, you have to work for everything you're going to get, and if you're not going to work for it and you think you deserve it, I'm not going to give it to you, because you're one of those guys that, hey, I'm not going to try. I know I'm a captain and I know I'm a starter. Well, those guys are the ones that I think their production goes down.
Yeah. I'm just very intrigued by the prospect that you could have Khalil, Boone, Sully, and then Clemmings, Lodeholt. That
huge
offensive line very much intrigues me, and I think you help out Clemmings not being able. He did okay. He wasn't bad, but you can definitely tell against some of the more mobile defensive ends he had troubles with.
I think he's not a tackle. I think he's better at guard.
Yeah.
And with Lodeholt or Andre Smith, if we sign him tomorrow or sometime next week, I think that if Clemmings moves to guard, he'll actually do a lot better. When he's the right tackle, it's really hard for him next to Mike Harris. They didn't have very good cohesion together, and it didn't help our offensive line at all that so many guys got hurt and we had to move guys around. And I think we'll do better with our veterans back.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, basically, I think now we're just going to move into what we think we're going to do in the draft. I'm not
let's
saying
talk about the draft a little bit.
Making any picks at the moment necessarily. I think we go wide receiver first round. That's my personal opinion, but I'm not going to nail down exactly who we're thinking. What do you think?
I like the wide receiver now that we shored up our offensive line, which was our biggest need. We have a great D-line. We have great linebackers. I think we have a pretty good secondary. I think there's maybe one piece missing in that safety. I think with Mike Wallace leaving, we need another speedster or a taller wide receiver.
I think
somebody's going to go up and get it.
I think we need a Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones type of wide receiver. I'm not saying we're going to get that, but I want somebody that can go up and get it in the end zone. That's what I want, because I think Diggs can take the shorter, across the middle routes, or even
and Jarius Wright.
Yeah, and Jarius Wright. I think they're both. I think Jarius is actually very underrated. I think he's very good at what he does, and he's reliable. Rudolph has a little bit of that, but Rudolph, I don't know. I don't know if Rudolph has that leaping ability to go up and actually get it, though.
He's got a pretty good vertical. I just don't know. He's got a basketball background, and he likes to box out and go up and get stuff rather than just a pure leaper, where I think we need to go for. I think we had that in Charles Johnson, but he fell out of favor from last year when Diggs showed up. He got hurt for 4 weeks. Diggs comes in, dominates, and all of a sudden Charles Johnson loses his job. I think that Charles Johnson can get back into the good graces of our coaching staff, that he could be that red zone threat. Otherwise, I think wide receiver is a good first round. I'm not big into it personally because we've had some issues with wide receivers in the first round in the past, with Cordell Patterson, who hasn't really panned out.
Oh, yeah.
And we signed, who was that, Troy Williamson a couple years ago, and that was just a terrible pick.
Well, and I think you got to be smarter than a pick like Troy Williamson. I think when you look at the last 4 years of our drafts have been very, very good. Well, just overall, we've drafted very well in the last 4 years. I mean, we have most of our starters and our young guys and stuff like that are coming up in the last 4 years of the draft. Cordero was a bad pick. I think we just need to be smarter about it. He was a guy that had one good year and you fell in love with him.
Yep.
And with Troy Williamson, I remember when we drafted him because he was lightning fast.
Yep.
But he couldn't catch a cold.
No.
So he could catch nothing. So yeah, you gotta. I think with Teddy too, you need to make sure you got a guy that's sure-handed, because Teddy typically isn't gonna put it right on the mark.
No, and in his third year, coming out of Louisville, I think they're gonna have him take more shots down the field. They were planning to with Mike Wallace this year, and it just didn't come to it. I think Wallace had somewhere around like 30 receptions or something like that, or less.
It was bad. I don't know if his speed and having Big Ben was that much of a benefit for him. I just don't.
Yep.
He just didn't get. He's not a good route runner.
No, and he didn't produce in Miami either when he signed with them. Ryan Tannehill didn't really know how to use him, that much in their coaching staff. And so I think he was a product of Ben Roethlisberger when he was out in Pittsburgh. So I think wide receiver is a really good pick for us, but I think if we have the opportunity, we take the best person on the board, whether that's safety, whether that's defensive line. It's a really deep defensive line class. So I hope we get more weapons for Teddy, but we also have a lot of weapons right now. Diggs, Jarius Wright. I like Kyle Rudolph. I like Michael Pruitt, who was a rookie last year, that tight end. He was third behind Rhett Ellison and Kyle Rudolph. And with Ellison maybe not coming back, he's going to get more time as that double tight end.
Yeah.
And he's an athletic freak. He can go up and get the ball, and I hope they give him the chance to do it.
Yeah, I think just what we've done here, we didn't make Alex Boone by far is our biggest signing. Yes. And we weren't super splashy, and I think they don't want to be super splashy.
Zimmer's not a splashy guy.
They want to build in the draft, and I really respect him for it. We're not going Packers on the bit where we just refuse to pick up anyone. I think that's a mistake. But I do like that they're filling in so that we can go into the draft and we go, okay, we have needs, but they're not glaring needs.
Right.
Like wide receiver is, in my opinion, our biggest need. But I think we are good enough where if you draft safety, I think that's smart. I think you can go linebacker. There's a lot of good defenders in this draft.
Yes.
Offense this is one of the weaker drafts we've seen for offense in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah,
at least from what I hear. I'm definitely not the smartest person when it comes to drafting these guys out of college, because I don't pay attention to college nearly as much. But that being said, I still think you go guard. I don't know. Do you think we need to replace a guy like Ellison in the backfield being kind of like a hybrid fullback tight end?
I don't believe so. I mean, we didn't go a lot of full house backfield last year. Ellison was a good fullback / tight end. He was a jack of all trades kind of guy, a Swiss Army knife, if you will. But with Zach Line in the back as our fullback, I think he's good. He can catch out of the backfield too. Mm-hmm. He had a couple touchdowns last year. And Kyle Rudolph does good pass catching. I just don't think he's the blocker that Rhett Ellison is.
Yeah.
I don't think we keep Rhett just to be a blocker. I think with the offensive line that we have, if we want to go heavy, we just put in another offensive lineman. We're
going to have plenty.
Yeah, I like doing that. If you want to go goal line, we don't need the tight ends on the goal line. I mean, we could insert any one of our guys on this team because they're so athletic. I mean, you look at the Patriots when they signed Mike Vrabel back in the early 2000s. Vrabel was their tight end. J.J. Watt was a tight end for the Texans, in goal line packages. I think Anthony Barr could be that for us. Or if you wanted to send out Chad Greenway with a hurrah, we could put him in on a couple plays and see if we can get him a touchdown.
That would be a good hurrah. Although his interception for the touchdown last year, that was a pretty big hurrah
that was awesome.
Moment. That was great. So yeah, I mean, we can go a lot of different ways here. I think we can almost every position you can draft to shore up. There's not. Like I said, wide receiver is the biggest for me, and then I think it's safety after that. But then after that, yes, we need to replace Chad Greenway eventually, but that doesn't need to happen this year. We have another free agency around, and then more drafting, and we could very well pick up a linebacker, a middle linebacker, in a fourth or fifth round pick that could be solid.
And that's one of the things that Zimmer was saying. He's like, hey, I don't need to draft weak side linebacker specifically. It's like Eric Kendricks played weak side, has played middle. He's good at middle, and those are two completely different positions. So he was saying, if there's a middle linebacker that's good, we'll take him. If there's a weak side linebacker that's good, we'll take him. Because, we have to start thinking about Greenway being gone and who's going to replace him. Because I don't think we have a guy in the roster that can do it yet. Mm-hmm. But because Kendricks is so good between the two positions, we can definitely flip him back and forth, and we can insert whoever we get. So I believe linebacker is pretty solid. Greenway's got 1 year left in him. We'll make a deal. I know we will with him. I think it's our secondary. We need to get Harrison Smith. He's very good, but I don't think he's reached his ceiling yet, and we need somebody to complement him on the defense so that he can get around the field a little bit more, like a Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed, Brian Dawkins would.
Definitely. Yeah. Otherwise, I think we're solid at corner. I think Trey Waynes gets more play this year. At the beginning of last year, he was a little handsy. He needed to knock that crap off. But Xavier had the same problem last year too.
Yep.
But I think Captain stepped up last year.
Yep.
Was a really good nickel corner for us. And then Terrence
Newman was good.
Yeah.
Yep. And we have Josh Robinson coming back from injury now, so he's going to be good. They're very small. Xavier Rhodes being our biggest guy, I think it's going to help having Trey Waynes, who is, I believe, 6 foot, maybe 6'1", as long as he can
drafted
get
him
better.
for speed.
Yeah, we did.
He's definitely taken on the speedsters. So I'm excited. I think this is the first year in a long time where we don't go in with a absolute glaring need. I guess the thing to wrap up is, what do you think Peterson's role is going to be this year? Because I think they tone him down again this year.
I don't know. They really want to start putting the offense in the hands of Teddy Bridgewater.
Completely agree. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, he is our future quarterback. He's coming into his third year. Peterson did turn 30, and we know running backs who hit their 30s are generally on the decline. I don't know if Peterson actually falls into that role very much, but I believe you still have to ride the back of Peterson until you can't anymore. Yeah. They're going to put more passes into Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, he had a huge completion rate because all he did was throw underneath. He didn't take deep shots a lot, and when he did, he wasn't accurate with them. So having Peterson where they have to respect the run all the time. You look at the 2 games that he was out, or 1 game or whatever, where who's our backup running back?
Jerick
McKinnon took the load. Him and Matt Asiata, going back and forth, they did not respect the pass at all. And they knew they could just manhandle us. So with AP, if he gets a diminished role, I think we're going to have a hard time with our offense. I think he is still the main component on our offense.
Well, and I think speaking of Jerick, I think you put Jerick out there a little more frequently. Put him and AP out there. I think Jerick could be, I think he's a good enough receiver where he could be, I don't want to compare him directly to Matt Forte, but that style of running back.
Yeah, just a little smaller.
Yeah, he's a little smaller and definitely not as good, but yeah, split him out occasionally. I think he can
5 wide.
I think he can do fine out there. In regards to Asiata, I like the guy, but I just don't know if there's a need for him on this team.
No, he's definitely a downhill runner. He's not dodgy. He can't see the holes as fast as AP can, and he doesn't have the acceleration. I do like him. I like that he scored 10 touchdowns when AP was gone that whole year. That was great. But Jerick McKinnon also did all the work getting him inside the 10-yard line, and then they put Asiata in to score the touchdowns.
Yeah. So a lot of good things to look forward to. I think one last thing I'm going to bring up is I think we got to remember, Teddy's downfield completion percentage wasn't great. I think going indoors is going to help him a lot.
Yes.
We're going to play at the very minimum 9 games indoors because we have one opponent in division that plays indoors. And I'm assuming it's going to be more than that, but at the very least, every single year we'll play 9 games indoors, and I think that'll help us out a lot.
Yeah, and I don't think we have a lot to worry about. I mean, we'll play indoors. Of our 16 games, 8 of them are going to be at home. Right? They split 50-50, home games, away games. And also, you go to places like San Francisco and you play outside, September, October. It's nice out. You don't have to worry about the weather so much, where it's just now when we get into November, December, we don't have to worry about the snow, and especially collapsing our roof of our dome, which would be awesome.
Hopefully not. Hopefully they got that figured out. Anyways, I think that's going to wrap us up. Do you have any last words, Josh?
No, I think it was a great first day.
Awesome. I had a lot of fun. Sorry for the mistakes. It's going to happen. I'm not the smartest individual in the world. Anyways, that's going to be it for Kings of the North. Hope you guys listen. Comment below. I'm going to upload this to YouTube eventually once I get a page. But anyways, I'm Zach.